Hey guys, welcome to another GameXplain discussion. I'm your host, Andre Seegers, and this time we're joined by Derek Bittner to discuss our impressions of the Splatoon 2 Testfire demo. So let's get started. Alright Derek, so the Splatoon 2 Testfire demo just wrapped up, at least for the first session, because there's still 5 more happening, which is kind of ridiculous and awesome. So given that, we've each had about an hour with the game, give or take a few extra minutes. You managed to get a few extra matches in at the end there somehow.
I think I got like 3 extra matches before they finally kicked me off. It
That
was
was
great.
awesome. So yeah, I guess you were just clicking continue, right? Maybe that's the key.
Yeah, as soon as I saw the time was up, but I was like, I'm just going to keep going. I'm not going to stop until they boot me, and finally they did boot me.
Days later, you're still playing Splatoon 2.
Exactly. I'm just like sitting there waiting for it's either going to time out on me or it's going to actually let me in, and nope, never timed out. As long as I stuck to my setup that I had no reason to go back and actually got some extra matches in.
That's awesome. I'm gonna give that a shot at the 8 p.m. slot tonight. So yeah, I guess let's just start off with our initial impressions. So obviously you kind of turned into our Splatoon guy after I kind of handed over the reins to you. So
yeah, you took care of the review. I took care of all the updates.
Exactly. So yeah, what did you think of what do you think of Splatoon 2 based on the 1 hour you've had with the demo so far?
Yeah, granted it's very limited because it was
early, yeah.
only an hour and it's really early.
We only had in case you don't know, there were only 2 maps that you probably got to try in 10 or 12 matches, I'm guessing. And then there were 4 weapon sets, if even that many matches. So yeah, there's still a lot more to this game that we haven't seen.
Oh, totally. And I like it. The thing is, it still feels like Splatoon, but with definite changes put in, mainly in the terms of the weapons and, of course, how the stages are set up. Excuse me. But I also just liked that it was fresh. It was new. It was different. I wasn't doing the same things. My tactics were different, especially with the new Splat Dualies, and I love those things. It all just, I clicked into it immediately what I was supposed to do. However, the big thing for me as far as just getting tripped up and not a complaint, but definitely something I have to adjust to is the controls. Like I was using the Pro controller with the Switch, and I thought it was going to be just naturally picking it up, having no issues, but having them switch the jump button from X to B from the Wii U version. They explained why, because on the Wii U version, X was close to the right thumbstick, and they wanted to make sure it was close to the right thumbsticks again. So because it's below now, it's on the B. And because of that, I'm also just bringing up that map anytime I want to jump, and I'm slowly getting the hang of it. And I think as time goes on, I'll definitely switch over, but my muscle memory is still with Splatoon 1, so I'm hitting that map and bringing it up and then trying to figure out, even when I bring up the map, it's like, oh gosh, how do I do this right to quickly do it and not have to worry about it. In that way, you do kind of miss the gamepad because you're able to just look down, tap, and go.
It is kind of funny how this playing Splatoon 2 is actually making me appreciate the gamepad's use in Splatoon 1 more now. It's like, damn, I actually do kind of miss the gamepad, but it's something I never really quite thought I would say. So a few things here. I'm sure a lot of this is just getting used to it, but I was screwing up that map thing, the map and jump thing constantly for like the entire hour. I started getting better at it toward the end, but I was still activating that map, just constantly. And it's not just because of them reversing it from Splatoon 1, I think, but also because jump is also on X in Zelda, which is another long game we just got done playing, or you're still playing it even. So yeah, that was totally screwing me up. And then even once I started remembering to activate the map, I didn't find it quite as elegant as on the gamepad. I don't know if you had this issue, but I don't know if I want to call it an issue. Again, this is just, we're still getting used to the game. So, but with the gamepad, I actually found it a lot easier to keep track of where I was on the map. Probably because I was looking at it much more so than I am in this game. Whereas every time I activated the map this time, I'm like, I don't even know where I am on this map. I couldn't find myself easily or quick enough that to make it useful to bring it up at every few seconds or whatnot. Yeah. So yeah, that is what threw me off the most. Is just how for how similar the game is, how different it kind of feels in some respects.
It really does, and yeah, the map is. It definitely isn't as elegant as the gamepad, but obviously we're not going to have the gamepad. They needed to have a change, and I think this is the best one they could possibly come up with. I really can't think of anything better off the top of my head. But it is also just one of those things that once you get a better sense of each map, of where your position is, I think time will solve a lot of these issues. But for players that are returning from the original Splatoon, I don't know how much trouble new players will have with these situations, but for returning players, there are definitely things you have to adjust to. And the thing for me is, like, I had trouble remembering what to do to actually jump to another player. Like, oh, I see what that person is on the right D-pad. I push it. Why am I not jumping there? Oh, I have to confirm it. So it feels slower in that respect. But again, I think practice and time playing it will solve those issues. And even by the end, I was having an easier time doing all that.
Yeah, I think people who are coming to the game fresh, so to speak, will have an easier time adjusting than people who are coming from Splatoon 1. Like, if you don't know what you're missing, you probably won't notice anything. You know, you won't realize that you're lacking something. And I even say that, hesitantly, just because, I'm sure I'll get used to it. But it is strange in that I actually am appreciating the gamepad in this one specific use more than I did even at the time. Alright, well, let's go and talk about some of the other differences. And that's the fact that, so in the demo, we got 4 weapon sets to try out, being the Splatter Shot, Splat Roller, Splat Dualies, and Splat Charger. On top of that, they mixed and matched some of their secondaries as well. And then on top of that, we got all new specials in addition. And those specials feel pretty, some of them they actually all feel different to me. But I guess I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here. What do you think about the weapon selection here?
I think it's a good balance. It's very similar to the very first Global Testfire, where we had the three weapons that were in the previous game, and we had the Splatter Shot Junior instead of the new Splat Dualies. And I gotta say, I know you were a huge fan of the Splatter Shot Junior and what it was capable of. I freaking love the Splat Dualies. They are just They're quick, they're relatively accurate, they put down the ink, and I love that dodge maneuver where you can just get that quick dodge, aim at a person, get that concentrated fire, and just take them down. And I can see that just being a very popular new weapon. And it really is just fun to use.
It is fun. I very much liked it, and I don't know if it's because I went from the Splat Dualies to the Splatter Shot, but the Splatter Shot felt slow to me, so I don't know if it's slower. I don't know if they slowed it down since Splatoon 1, or if it's just by comparison to the Splat Charge, or to the Splat Dualies, that it feels slower. But yeah, I actually quite like the Splat Dualies as my default weapon. However, the dodge kept screwing me up. Because in Splatoon 1, I would jump all the freaking time. Like, I would jump when attacking an enemy to avoid their fire, or to throw them off, to make them re-aim. Whereas here, it doesn't quite work that way. You can't jump while shooting with the Splat Dualies. You have to roll or dodge.
Yeah.
And I'm not quite sure how I feel about that yet. I like that it has something different, but I don't know if it's what I'm looking for in a weapon.
Yeah, and hopefully, you'll find something that better matches your style or something like that, because that actually did happen to me a few times where I wanted to shoot and jump over something, and then nope, I rolled and off I go into the water.
Like you can't cross a gap now while shooting.
No.
Yeah.
It'd be kind of bad. So, I mean, there is ways around it. Just jump first and then start shooting. But it's, again, a muscle memory you have to break down from what you were used to before, at least specifically with this weapon. So it's definitely more ground-based combat than the aerial combat, as strange as that is to say.
Well, considering it's special.
Yeah, exactly. The ink, I found the inkjet to be a lot of fun. You put
it is
ink
fun,
down
yeah.
and like those I was expecting an arc. No, it just blasts, and you actually want to focus it on the ground, because if you just shoot straight ahead, it's not going to eventually land like I thought it would. It sort of just disappears or dissipates in the air. So it actually changed up how I was planning on using it, where I was focusing much more around where I was rather than ahead. And of course, it is really satisfying to get multiple people in just one big blast of ink as you're flying above them.
Yeah, that's pretty great. It did throw me off for a second when I tried going over a grate, and my character dropped instantly to like a foot above the grate. I'm like, What is this? This is the worst jetpack ever. But it's because, it goes off the ground, of course. So the shooting through the grate, you can't quite go over them. So that does definitely add an interesting strategic dynamic to it, and that you do have to be careful how you're going around. I mindlessly tried going off the side of the level, and that also didn't work. I just fell to my death. Because, again, it needs the ground beneath it to stay, 10 feet in the air or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So, you definitely have to think about how you're getting around. My one thing I'm not quite sure about, I totally get why they did this, but I really wish I could just stay where Like, I wish I could use it to fly somewhere, and then when it ran out, if I could stay there instead of returning me to the position where I started using it from.
I can see where you're coming from when wanting to stay. I mean, a lot of times it actually got me out of bad situations where, like, oh, I'm starting to get surrounded. They're about to take me out. Oh, bye. I'm going back to where I was.
Yeah, I'm surrounded again.
Yeah. But I also see why they didn't do that, because with these, it would be possible to get into the enemy territory. Like,
yeah, it totally
that
is.
sort of safe, like that safe spot around their spawner. And while you can get close to them in the old games, it's very rare that a level allows you to get right up next to it. So I think it's to prevent that sort of thing, where you can just get to the spawner and just like hold them there with this. It's sort of a balancing act.
Well, that's a good point. I wonder if that might have been an intentional change, because I know some levels in the original were like that, similar to this, where they did have that safe buffer area, but there were other levels where you could get right up against their base. Like, you could be right up against it. The only thing keeping you back was a little force field around it. So I wonder if that might be an intentional change here, but I think in both of these levels, you couldn't get that close to it.
I don't think so, no.
Yeah.
It would make sense if they made that change, because the level that you could do that in, where you can get right up to it, if the other team just starts dominating you, there's nothing you can do. There's no safe area to sort of get your bearings and try to make another assault,
right,
because they're just right there. As soon as you get out of the spawner, they'll splat you.
Yep.
So I do think it would be a good idea if they did that, and if they balanced the inkjet to go back to where you started from in that way.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think about the other weapons? You tried all four of them out, I'm guessing, right? Or
Yes,
all four
I
sets?
tried all four. Before we move on, though, there was the Splat Dualies did have a new sub-weapon, unlike the other three choices. This one is completely new. It's the curling bomb.
Mm-hmm.
And I love this thing. It actually might be my favorite thing of the whole package, because it just sends out this trail of ink and bounces off things, and you can get a lot of coverage, and it throws people off. It makes them a little worried, jumps around. It can also just put it ahead and follow behind it as you get ink. There's so many different strategies with this curling bomb. I love this thing. I just need to get the timing right on how long to hold it, so I can actually cause people to explode. Because I don't think I got a single kill in it, but I was able to just send out ink and just keep people at bay, or at least get some more ink down to just help charge up my other stuff. I love this new sub weapon.
Yeah, I didn't have much of a chance to use it, or really most of the other subs, just because. I mean, it is kind of crazy how, like, with these 4 different weapon sets, you essentially have 12 different weapons to try out. In an hour, that's not much time. So yeah, I wasn't able to focus too much on the secondaries, so I wasn't even quite sure how the curling bomb was working. So that's something I definitely want to play with more, especially based on your accolades for it.
Yeah, it's definitely. There's simple ways to use it, but there's also the trickier ways to use it. So it's one of those simple to easy to learn, hard to master type things, right. I believe. And it'll be really interesting to see how that goes. Speaking of that, though, just on the terms of sub-weapons, I love that the new UI has a marker to say, you need this much to be able to actually use your sub-weapon. If I remember correctly, that was not in the original game.
Is it on your back?
Yeah, whenever you're shooting ink, it'll have like this little line in your ink that marks how much ink you need in order to pull off your sub-weapon.
I could be wrong. I thought that was in the original too.
Maybe I can't remember, but at least it seems more obvious this time.
It could be more obvious, yeah.
Maybe it's more obvious. It has also been quite a long time since I played the original Splatoon, so memory might be getting to me. But whatever the case, I like that it's so obvious now. I'm noticing it, and I was like, okay, I just need a little bit more ink to get to that point so I can actually use it. Actually, I think you're right that there was an indicator there, but it feels a lot more obvious this time around.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, you can definitely see like some of the tweaks they're making to the game to like for as familiar as the game is, they are making some smart changes to it. At least, in respects where they're not forced to make changes, like with the gamepad, for instance.
Yeah, exactly. Like the UI at the top where you can see all the inklings and you can see which weapons they have, or if they have a special charge, or if they're using their special, or if they even just dropped out of the game, it's just completely blank. It's a lot easier to tell what's going on with either side. Yep,
good point. Alright, so we kind of touched on the splatter shot and, of course, the Splat Dualies. What do you think of the roller and charger?
The roller... Well, let's go with the charger because I hate chargers.
Yeah, same here.
I have never been good at the chargers.
I'm pretty terrible with it. I don't like it because I think it feels too conventional for me. Like it's still Splatoon, but it's too much of a standard shooter, you know? Maybe it's just me. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm also partially, like, it gets back to what I said earlier, I think, where I'm more about immediate gratification. I want the immediate effects. And with the charger, like, you have to sit there and charge it for it to be useful, and I don't like spending that much time with it.
Yeah, that's the thing. I've seen people be devastating with chargers where they get, like, they'll be the top, they get the most ink down in a match, or they'll get just massive amounts of kills. Once you learn this thing, you can be, like, just devastating with it. But those growing pains is something I still have not gotten out of, and you know, I got some ink down. I tried out the new functionality where you could hold a charge once you go under, but again, you only have so much time before you lose the charge. So it's more of an immediate, like, oh, somebody's coming by, I need to reposition coming at me, I need to reposition quick, and then let the charge off. It's one of those things, but it's not a big enough change for me to be like, oh, I'm going to start using splat chargers now.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I guess I want to give it more of a shot, maybe than I did in the original, but I think I tried, I mean, I tried it a handful of times. I'm like, I'm going back to my splatter shot. I'm awesome with that. So yeah, maybe I'll give it more of a shot now. But what did you think of its special, the Stingray?
I only got to use the Stingray once, and it's
Yeah, same here.
It's kind of like the killer whale from the original, except
it is.
you
can move it around.
aim. Yeah, you can aim it this time. It's a very slow aim, but it does go through objects and can get some people. And I didn't really get any kills with it, but it was also just really. I can definitely see it being very useful. You just have to have the proper like setup before you start using it, because you're in the wrong position or something like that, you're going to be in trouble.
It's one of those weapons that will be really good once you better know the maps. Like once you know the exact intricacies of where everything is, that's when it could be really useful.
Yeah, I could totally see that happening. I can see people being really deadly with this thing. Because I think it'll also start killing way sooner than the killer whale, because there's a bit of a charge up time, and you saw the indicator, hey, the killer whale's coming, start getting out of the way.
That's true.
And I'm not sure, I can't remember if it's been here or not. Every time I saw somebody using the Stingray, it was kind of far off or at a place I didn't have to worry about. So I can't say for sure about how that works. But it definitely has potential, and I do think it has a lot more use than the killer whale, just for the mere fact that it moves.
Yeah, well, I think I don't think it quite gives you the same heads up that the killer whale did, but you know, there are a couple of differences. One, it still makes a distinctive sound, as I recall, and two, I don't think it's a one-hit kill like the killer whale was.
I'm not sure, since I didn't get hit by it.
Yeah, I know I definitely got hit by it, not dead on. So maybe if it hits you dead on, it is, but I got hit by the side of it before, and I'm pretty sure I was okay. So, all right. Well, what do you think about the splatter roller? Because evidently they sped it up in this game. It's faster than it used to be.
Did it? It doesn't feel. I guess it is a little bit faster. I only played it a couple times before, because I really wanted to play around with the splat dualies. But yeah, I played it a couple times, and it might be a little faster. It's kind of hard to tell. The biggest change, of course, is that the new jumping attack goes vertical this time rather than just a straight horizontal shot, which definitely is going to change up some tactics about how you get other players. And that definitely is going to change things up, but it also didn't feel that different otherwise. And I mean, I'll definitely try. I'll continue to try out more with each of these different test fires. Like, I do want to spend more time with each weapon to try to get a better sense of them, and I do want to spend more time with the splat roller to see if I can get a better handle on it. And
yep.
I did it to myself this time, so there you go. But yeah, it seems all right. But what did you think?
Basically, I mean, I feel the same as I did about it in the original game. I mean, I think it's fine. I wasn't a big splat roller user. Because I got in the habit, like, I like dipping in and out ink constantly, and with a splatter shot, I can always go in the same direction. Whatever direction I want to go in, I can do that with a splatter shot. With the roller, I feel like you hit that wall where you have to go back at some point if you want to rebuild your ink supply, or sit still. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah. You have to do the jumping method, and again, that's been changed now, although it goes longer. So you can do the jumping method, throw it out, you get to the very edge where you fill up your ink, and then start doing your regular roll. So again, I like the fact that a lot of these changes are going to change up people's strategies. You're not going to be able to use the same things you were doing in the previous game. And even if you're just using the splatter shot, you still got to adjust to everybody else's new tactics.
That's kind of the fun thing, like seeing how all these weapons interact with each other, like seeing what's effective against another. I mean, we haven't even had a chance to play with gear this time and see how that's going to impact things.
Yeah.
So it is weird, like how on the surface, on the very surface level, it feels so much like Splatoon, which granted you would expect in a game called Splatoon 2. But I do think it does come down to those smaller changes, those the more intricate nature of these weapons and the gear sets, and how that's going to affect everything. So it's a kind of game, like when you start sitting down with it for real, I think that's when the differences will become more appreciable.
Yeah, I'm actually. It is a tantalizing taste. Like, I cannot wait for the next session so I can play more, and I really can't wait for the full game to see what it does, because it feels like it's going to be a good sequel. I mean, some people might be down on it for not changing enough, or having a lot of people are going to maybe make the claim that it's Splatoon 1.5. I don't care. It's more Splatoon. It's different tactics, and I'm already I want more. I want to see what else they can do.
Yeah, I mean, same here. Like, I'm super stoked for the campaign as well. Like, I really like the campaign in the first one. I can't wait to see what more they're doing here with this. But there's still a couple more things we need to touch on, Derek, before we wrap it up. That sounded like a good wrap up there.
Oh, sorry.
What do you think of the maps? We had Muscle Forge Fitness and then the Reef.
All right. Well, it was actually our first ever experience with Muscle Forge Fitness for anybody, which was really cool. And I gotta say, I actually think I prefer that map to the Reef. Both are fine. Nothing about either stands out in any major way, in my opinion. Like, there's nothing like, oh, that part, it's really cool or makes it really different. Now, these are pretty basic maps in the grand scheme of things, but there's something about Muscle Forge Fitness and the layout and that center area that just makes it really interesting and fun, in my opinion. And having sort of a standard map, the only thing that stands out to me about the Reef is that bridge where you can kind of go under, and that's a little bit different from other maps. So
right.
The best I can say is that they're good, and I do enjoy Muscle Forge Fitness, but there's nothing about them that's like jaw dropping. These
feel like they could have straight up been Splatoon 1 maps, which isn't a negative. I had a great time with those maps, but they don't feel that distinct to me. It's like these you could have told me these were DLC maps of Splatoon 1, I would have not even doubted you for a second. So
yeah, it's actually like I'm actually thinking back to the original Global Testfire and comparing it to the two maps there, and like that, I mean, they're basically like those, where one's an interior, kind of small, kind of close, and another one's out in the open, a little bit bigger.
Remind me, one was a warehouse, right, in the original, and then what was the other?
Walleye warehouse, and the other one was like the oil. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but the oil rig type place.
Oh yeah. I play this game so freaking much. You'd think I'd remember these names better.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, so I would actually say during that test fire, and granted, it might be because the entire game was new back then, I would say those two maps felt more different to each other or relative to each other than these two maps felt, among them.
Oh, okay. It's like, so those two maps felt different compared to each other,
right,
within that game, more so than Muscle Forge and the Reef do in this one.
Wow, this is a very cumbersome way of putting it, but yes, yeah. I mean, that's true. That is,
yeah.
That's right, yeah.
Sorry. No, I would agree, actually. I do see your point, because it's not as much of a difference. That's like, but I don't want to sound like I'm being negative on these maps, because they're fine maps. It just, again, it's not like the if we got the Moray Towers, where the new change they've already announced for that returning map, where they have those ink rails from the single player. Like, which having awesome. That and experiencing that, I would have loved for that map to be part of the Global Testfire, so we can see how the ink rails will work in multiplayer.
Yeah, and that's something I've been wanting since the original game. That would be awesome to see how exactly those affect getting around in the multiplayer maps.
Yeah, I think that's why I'm so excited, because they are making changes. Like, people were requesting those to be in the multiplayer. They're going to be, who knows what other new concepts they'll come up with for the single player that might also make it into the multiplayer. Like, they are most definitely giving us the basics here. They're giving us, these are all the most basic types of these weapons. They're not going into any of the other variations or anything like that. So once you get into the variations, that's when Splatoon sort of becomes its own thing, where you can sort of personalize your Inkling and how you fight and what you do.
There is one thing that the demo did disappoint me in, though, Derek.
What's that?
The music.
Really? See, I actually have not been able to listen to the music since I was streaming. I had it down pretty low that I couldn't.
It's not bad. It's just not as energetic as I need my Splatoon music to be. I need to be in my face. I need to be pumped up, and it wasn't doing that for me.
Really? That's interesting. Yeah, I'm looking forward to, like, I don't know if I'm streaming this next session or not, but I'm interested to finally hear the music and see how it compares. I guess I could also just listen to the playback, but...
That's true.
Then I have to listen to myself talk, and that's no fun. Nobody wants to listen to that.
Only the 2,000 people watching your stream did.
Yeah, exactly. And the people now.
So, I guess to wrap up, I guess we should just maybe provide some final thoughts on the idea of a test fire. Like, I love that they did this. Like, this is awesome. I mean, it is basically just a demo, also a stress test for Nintendo, which also, by the way, went off with flying colors this time, which I know they had some issues with Splatoon 1's test fire during a couple of them. So it was nice to see it work flawlessly here. I'm just glad they did this. Like, I think this is coming at a good time. Like, Mario Kart isn't for another month. I wish it were sooner. But this kind of helps fill in that gap a little bit. Granted, it's not too much of a gap filler because we only get really at most 6 hours of playtime, which is actually pretty decent. But assuming you can't hit all of those, which I'm guessing most people won't, you're getting somewhere probably between 2 to 4 hours of playtime.
Yeah, and it really is just like, here you go, early Switch adopters. Here's what you can enjoy. You can play some Splatoon 2 early, get a sense of the game, and also helps Nintendo stress test, as you said. And I did have, a few drop games, a bit of weird lag before I got dropped, but for the most part, if it was a solid game, it was a solid game, and I can't be upset about drops or disconnects or anything like that, because, again, it is a stress test. This is designed to see how much they need to do and stuff. And even with the original Global Testfire, we saw as the weekend went on, it got better. And I can totally see the same thing happening for this Testfire.
It probably helps that there really aren't that many Switches out there quite yet, compared to Wii U's at the time, so...
True, that would be a better question. Like, were there more Wii U's at the time the original Splatoon came out, or more Switches now?
Oh, no, there were definitely more Wii U's then. I mean, granted, the Switch was probably catching up pretty quick, but there was no question there were more Wii U's at the time, so...
Yeah.
Alright, Derek, final thoughts on anything related to the Testfire or Splatoon 2 in general?
I mean, I accidentally summed it up before. I love this taste of the game. I've enjoyed my playtime with it so far. I really want to play around with the other weapons and the specials and really get a sense for them and try to learn them as well. But I can definitely see myself picking up the Splat Dualies, and if they can excite me that much about a new weapon, they're already doing something right, and I cannot wait to see what else they have to offer. Yeah,
the Splat Dualies definitely feel like completely distinct, and that's something I want to see, hopefully more of, or at least see how the variations on that might play. Yeah, that's a lot of fun. So, I just want to play more as well. This game is really great so far. Hoping to play more of it, hopefully with better music, more energetic music. Yeah, and I actually hope, kind of continuing on the Testfire idea, I hope they do something similar for ARMS. I think ARMS could really use a Testfire-like demo in order for people to get a better idea of what that game's about. It worked for Splatoon, I think it could work for ARMS.
I think that's a really good idea. Just have those characters play that demo, maybe go online or something. Like, just having a demo to really show off what that game's capable of would be great. So
absolutely,
get on it, Nintendo.
Alright guys, well I think that wraps up our discussion here, so thanks for watching. If you liked our discussion, make sure to like and follow us on Facebook and Twitter at GameXplain. You can find links to them in the description below, which go we keep updated on everything we post. And if you want to support us, you can donate to us on Patreon for just $1 a month to get access to our podcast early. Also, there's a link to Play Asia in the description below. If you buy anything using that link, it'll also help support us. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Of course, stay tuned to GameXplain for more on Splatoon 2 and other things gaming as well. Catch you later. Bye.